Leo's relationship with me was an act of vengeance against my mother. He kissed me right in front of her, his words a sharp counterpoint to the polite murmurings of the other parents. He asked her, a respected teacher, if she still found homosexuality disgusting, now that her own son was one of them. Then he vanished, a clean break that felt like falling off a cliff. 6 years passed before I saw him again. By then, Leo was a success, a young and accomplished man of business. I was a caretaker for my mother, who had been left in a persistent vegetative state by a car accident. For money, I had become the lover of his business associate. I never expected to see Leo again in this city, and certainly not at the home of my benefactor, Mr. Harrington. I was just about to leave when Leo arrived. Harrington disliked me lingering in his penthouse. The arrangement was that I would tidy myself and depart as soon as our business was concluded. Descending the main staircase, I nearly collided with Leo as he was being shown in. The sight of him after 6 years made my heart skip. I instinctively pulled the collar of my shirt higher, my voice barely a whisper as I bid Harrington farewell. He gave a slight nod, his gaze not even flickering in my direction. Leo, however, watched me with an unblinking intensity. As the heavy door began to close, I caught the tail end of Harrington's amused tone, describing me as a little amusement he kept around, and asking if Leo was interested. Leo's reply was smooth, questioning how he could possibly covet something that belonged to Mr. Harrington. A hearty laugh followed, with Harrington dismissing any notion of love in such a relationship and telling Leo not to mock him. The rest of their conversation was lost as the door sealed shut, leaving me in the echoing silence of the foyer. I stared at my own feet for a long moment, lost in a daze, until the butler cleared his throat, a polite but firm signal for me to leave. Cabs were scarce in Harrington's secluded, wealthy neighborhood. A profound exhaustion settled over me, turning my walk into a slow, meandering shuffle along the roadside. I lost track of time. A sudden honk from behind startled me. A black sedan pulled up, the window rolling down to reveal Leo's face. He told me to get in, that he would give me a ride. I shook my head, thanking him but insisting I could find a cab soon enough and didn't want to be a bother. His brow furrowed. He pointed out that I'd been walking for over an hour and had barely covered a mile. His voice laced with impatience. He asked who I was waiting for out here in the middle of nowhere, implying I had staged this encounter. It wasn't true. The weariness was just so immense that I kept having to stop, the urge to simply lie down on the pavement and sleep overwhelming. He had misunderstood, but the effort required to explain, especially to him, felt monumental. He opened the passenger door for me, and this time I didn't refuse. I gave him my address. He started the car without turning on the GPS. He knew the way. It was my mother's house. He had been there once 6 years ago on the last Christmas Eve before our SATs. He had snuck over to my building to set off fireworks for me. His voice on the phone had been electric with excitement, telling me, Ash, to come to the window. The fireworks were just for me, he'd said, and any wish I made on them would come true. He asked if I'd wish to get into NYU for law school, certain that I would. I hadn't answered, just pressed my hand against the cold glass, looking down at his bundled figure in the snow. My wish, I had thought, was to be setting off fireworks with you next Christmas. Looking back, it was all probably part of his performance. He had put so much effort into winning me over. The drive was silent. When we arrived, I thanked him and, after a moment's hesitation, told him to be safe on the road. His gaze lifted to the third-floor window, a dark rectangle obscured by heavy navy curtains. A faint, unreadable smile touched his lips as he stared at it. He asked me, after all this time, how Ms. Walker was doing. I froze. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable, until Leo's patience wore thin and he started to pull away from the curb. Only then did my voice emerge, raw and hoarse. She's fine. Inside the small rental apartment, the figure on the bed lay with her eyes closed. I sat beside her, massaging her arm. "Mom, I ran into Leo today. He's back in the city. Just for business, I think. He won't be staying long." There was no response. I continued my one-sided conversation, telling her that he'd asked about her, but I hadn't told him anything. I knew she wouldn't want him to know. I promised that if she didn't want it, I wouldn't say a word. I leaned in, pressing her limp hand to my cheek. "Did I do okay this time, Mom? Was I not a disappointment?" The woman on the bed just lay there, her breathing even and quiet, neither speaking nor opening her eyes. It had been 6 years since my mother had acknowledged me. She blamed me. I knew it, and I was sorry, so incredibly sorry. Every single second of the past 6 years had been filled with regret. If it weren't for me, she wouldn't be lying here, unable to move so much as a finger. I closed my eyes, but no tears came. There was only a crushing fatigue that made even breathing feel like a chore. There was a period when I stopped eating, stopped moving. All I wanted was to lie there until my lungs gave out, until my heart no longer had the strength to beat, and then it would all be over. I spent a full day on the floor of my mother's room until a knock came at the door. It was Mrs. Diaz from next door. She'd seen my lights were off and figured I hadn't cooked. She'd made a beef stew and wanted me to have some. Much later, before she moved to be with her son, Mrs. Diaz hugged me and cried. She told me she knew something was wrong that day but didn't know how to help. She remembered how much I used to love my mom's barbecue ribs and, since I hadn't had them in so long, she'd made a pot for me. She pleaded with me to live a good life, saying she wanted to come back for my wedding someday. The day I saw her off at the airport, I came home to find an envelope of cash on the nightstand in my mother's room. Underneath it was a piece of paper with a detailed recipe for barbecue ribs. After that, I never tried to kill myself again. Even when the thought crossed my mind 1,000 times, I would always pull back from the brink. Couldn't die. What would happen to my mom? I had already killed her once. I couldn't do it a second time. I couldn't die, but I didn't have the energy to live properly either. Mr. Harrington approached me a year ago. He said I bore a striking resemblance to an old friend of his and asked if I needed money. He explained that I wouldn't have to do anything except be present when he needed me. It seemed like an incredibly low-effort job for someone like me. I agreed. With the money from Harrington, I hired a nurse for my mother. When she was on duty, I would sit in the recliner by my mom's bed and watch the sun travel across the sky, from sunrise to sunset, for the entire day. The nurse, Mrs. Quinn, was a kind woman. Worried by my listless state, she sometimes brought her high school-aged son, Ricky, over to do his homework. She confessed that the boy was terrible at math and would get yelled at by his teachers. She saw the academic awards on my walls and figured I must have been a great student, asking if I would tutor him in exchange for her home-cooked chicken soup. I knew she was just trying to give me something to do, believing in her simple, earnest way that keeping busy would bring happiness and purpose. But Ricky wasn't a good student and often skipped school, causing her no end of trouble. This time, however, when he got into trouble, he didn't call his mother. He called me. "Ash, please, you have to help me," he sobbed over the phone. He had broken a very expensive bottle of liquor at a private club and couldn't possibly pay for it. I didn't tell Mrs. Quinn, just said I had to go out. She seemed pleased, telling me it was good to get out of the house. When I arrived at the club, I found Leo and Mr. Harrington sharing drinks with a group of executives and wealthy heirs whose faces I didn't recognize. Ricky stood off to the side, head bowed, his face pale with fear. He called out my name when he saw me. Harrington and Leo looked up. The shock of seeing them there left me momentarily speechless before I managed a respectful greeting to Mr. Harrington. He chuckled, remarking that if he had known I was the rich connection Ricky was calling, he would have just bought the bottle himself to save everyone the trouble. No one in the room was a fool. They all understood the implication. I could only manage an awkward smile. Harrington waved Ricky away, then turned his attention to me, inviting me to sit and have a drink since I was already there. Harrington was shrewd. He had noticed the way Leo looked at me back at his penthouse but didn't know the tangled history between us. He likely saw me as a pawn to be sacrificed for a potentially lucrative business relationship. He had me sit next to Leo. Glass after glass of expensive scotch was poured. Leo seemed quite drunk. Harrington arranged for a suite for him and, before leaving, pushed me inside as well, telling me to take good care of Mr. Chin. I stood by the door for a long time, watching Leo, who appeared to be unconscious on the bed. I was torn between leaving and staying. Then his eyes opened, and his voice, clear and sober, cut through the quiet. "Ash, weren't you supposed to be taking care of me? Come here." He wasn't drunk at all. I stayed by the door, watching him prop himself up on his elbows. It finally dawned on me that I should leave. I told him to get some rest and that I was going. His voice stopped me. "How much is Harrington paying you to do this kind of thing?" My hand tightened on the doorknob. $3,000 a month. A laugh came from behind me. $3,000? You're cheap." After a moment of silence, he walked towards me. "Ash, I'm only going to ask you this once. Are you in some kind of trouble?" Trouble? I thought back over the past few years. The hardest part was already over. I shook my head. "No, I just don't feel like working. I don't feel like doing anything, but I need the money." The air grew heavy with his breathing. I didn't dare turn around. I was afraid to see his face. 6 years ago, after he had vanished overnight, I had wanted to see him every day. I dreamt of it. I was only 18, just out of high school, and my world had been turned upside down. I was terrified and in pain. At first, I fantasized about punching him, demanding to know why he did what he did. But as time wore on, crushed under the weight of staggering medical bills and legal battles from the accident, I just wanted to see him. Just to have him appear and say something, anything, so I would know I wasn't alone. But there was nothing. A classmate told me Leo had gone to study abroad. His family was wealthy. They might even immigrate. He probably wasn't coming back. After hearing that, I slowly accepted that I would never see him again. Life got busier, the burdens heavier, and gradually, I had less and less time to think about him. 6 years. Just as I had begun to truly forget, he reappeared. It was like a conditioned response. Just when I thought I had left it all behind, he was here, reminding me of everything that had happened, and asking if I was in trouble. The hardest times, I got through them on my own. I'm not in trouble anymore. I really am not. I don't have to go to school, I don't have to fight lawsuits, I don't have to borrow money from everyone. I don't have to deal with the hospital demanding payment. I don't have to work around the clock until I can't keep my eyes open. Leo's voice was a low growl, laced with disgust. "Ash, have you really fallen this low? Does your mother know?" I turned to face him, my gaze steady. "Leo, it's been 6 years. Isn't your revenge complete yet? But I'm afraid I have to disappoint you. This little game of yours. Neither my mother nor I can play along anymore." Leo had started dating me to get back at my mother. The person he had actually cared for, Julian, had been bullied at school because of her and had jumped from the roof of the school building during his junior year. Julian was gay, and the whole school knew it because my mother had made it public. She had caught Julian writing a love letter during study hall and demanded he read it aloud to the entire class. He refused, begging and apologizing, but she snatched the letter and read it herself. It was addressed to Leo. My mother didn't know who Leo was then. She berated Julian, asking which girl he was writing to. A few of the boys in the class snickered and whistled that Leo was a boy. My mother was a deeply conventional woman. She believed Julian must have been sick to like another boy. She took him to her office and lectured him for an entire period about how he was disappointing his parents and himself, throwing away his bright future for a boy. She ignored his tearful pleas and called his parents. His father, a man who lived his life through alcohol and gambling, arrived at the school still drunk. He grabbed a nearby chair and brought it down on Julian's back. The other teachers had to intervene to stop him, but his verbal abuse continued, loud and foul. accusing Julian of being just like his whore of a mother and suggesting he go sell himself instead of wasting time in school. After that day, the story of Julian's sexuality and his abusive home life spread like wildfire. The boy who had once been a model student became an outcast. He started getting into fights which were always reported as him being the aggressor. Leo often got involved trying to defend him. It wasn't fighting. It was Julian trying to survive the bullying. But my mother saw it as him choosing to spiral downwards. Because of the multiple disciplinary actions and his plummeting grades, Julian lost his academic scholarship. For someone with his family background, that scholarship was his only way to continue his education. He went to my mother's office and begged her to talk to the school, to plead his case. She just looked at his report card and told him coldly that scholarships were based on merit, and that he had no one to blame but himself. I imagine she said other things to him that day, things born from her shallow, ignorant, and prejudiced views on homosexuality. I don't know the exact words, but they must have been cruel, because not long after, Julian jumped from the 7th floor roof. And that was when my life was invaded by Leo, a boy determined to avenge Julian. My mother wasn't his first target, but she was his last. Outside the SAT testing center, in front of my mother, Leo kissed me. "Aren't you the one who finds this so disgusting, Ms. Walker? Well, now your son is one of them." The phrase spiraling downwards, which my mother had used on Julian 6 years ago, Leo now returned to me. He probably hoped it would inflict the same degree of pain. But he would be disappointed. That phrase couldn't hurt me now. Whether I was spiraling or striving, I didn't care. I was just tired. So tired that I had no energy to feel the world or respond to anyone else's emotions. Leo's quest for revenge had been long and relentless, and even after 6 years, he wouldn't let it go. I wasn't going to shirk my responsibility. My mother was wrong back then, but now she lay there, unable to move a finger, incapable of repenting or bearing any more consequences. As for me, the humiliation and pain Leo had dealt me back then were now things I could no longer feel. I couldn't mirror his anger, which only made him angrier. He demanded to know what I meant by not playing along, shouting that a life had been lost. He asked if Eleanor Walker had ever once said she was sorry, if she lived her life in peace, thinking she was a good teacher. He wondered if, in the middle of the night, she ever remembered the name Julian, and the fact that her hand was one of those on the knife that killed him. My mother's hand, in her capacity as a teacher, had unwittingly orchestrated a campaign of bullying against a student, but she could no longer atone for it herself. And whether she felt any remorse before she lost consciousness, no one would ever know. I said I was sorry, that it was our fault. My mother, who led the charge, Julian's parents, who failed him, the students who bullied him, the bystanders who spread rumors, and me, who saw it all and did nothing. We were all guilty. Leo released his grip on my collar. "You can't apologize for her." I didn't tell Leo about my mother's condition. I knew her. She was a woman of immense pride, who had lived her entire life by the book. But her husband had an affair, and the perfect family she had built shattered overnight. In the small, gossipy town we came from, she became a cautionary tale. They said she wasn't woman enough to keep her own husband. The most radical thing she ever did was get a divorce. Everyone, including her own parents, told her to endure it for the sake of appearances. But she didn't. She cut ties with her family, gave up everything in the divorce to get custody of me, and moved to a new city with a 6-year-old boy to start over. She had carried herself with dignity her entire life, her spine ramrod straight. And on that day, in front of everyone at the school, students, parents who respected her, colleagues, Leo kissed her son. He had inflicted a wound designed to destroy the very foundation of her world. I can still see the look on her face, an image that haunts my dreams. Shock, shame, self-blame, and a grief so profound it was heart-wrenching. Her tears fell before mine. "Ash," she had cried, "it's my fault. I didn't raise you right. It's all my fault." I knew my mother would never want Leo to see her in her current state. I had to protect that last shred of her dignity. It was my dignity, too. It felt like a long, drawn-out form of self-punishment. I couldn't tell Leo we were even, because we weren't. Julian had lost his vibrant 17th year. Leo had lost the person he loved with all his 17-year-old heart. But I couldn't blame my mother either, because every agonizing second of the 6 years she had spent lying in that bed was because of me. I didn't know what to do. It was like being trapped in a narrow alley, with thorns on either side. Every direction led to more pain, so I stopped trying to move. The alley was dark, and after 6 years, I still couldn't see the end. I felt myself sinking into mud, heavy and thick, pulling me down. But then a voice would echo in my mind. "Ash, I made some stew. Come have some." I failed to take care of Leo. Mr. Harrington sat on his sofa, rubbing an antique signet ring. His voice was flat. "Ash, the person you were a stand-in for has returned. You should understand that if you are no longer of value to me, I will no longer be paying you." He stood up, looking down at me. "There's a project I'm working on that requires Leo's participation, but he seems uninterested. However, Ash, I believe you can make him interested. Can't you?" He gave me a contract. He said if Leo signed it, I would receive a one-time payment of $100,000. That was enough to support my mother and me for a long time. I took the contract to Leo and told him about my deal with Harrington. He looked at me with contempt, saying that it was one thing for me to debase myself, but another to drag him into it. I looked at him and spoke calmly. "You'll do it because the last person Julian saw before he jumped was me. He didn't leave a note, but he said some things. Things you don't know. Isn't that right?" I held out the contract. "A final memory of your first love. Leo, do you want to know?" He lunged at me, his voice a roar, pinning me against the wall. His eyes were bloodshot. "You're using him to threaten me?" I met his gaze, silent. An eternity seemed to pass before he finally sagged. Defeated. "Ash, I honestly don't know if you've changed, or if I never really knew you at all." I tried to smile, but my facial muscles wouldn't cooperate. Perhaps I thought it's like mother, like son. The smile I couldn't manage appeared on Leo's face. It started small and grew until his whole body was shaking with laughter. When he was finished, he sat back down, draping an arm over the sofa. "But Ash, I don't want to know." My face fell. He continued, "Harrington pays you $3,000 a month to sleep with him? Why don't you sleep with me? I'll give you the $100,000. After all, Julian wasn't my first love. You were. Leo, you bastard." I shot to my feet and threw the contract at him with all my strength. But it was just a piece of paper, as powerless as my rage. Leo looked down. "Ash, you can't be the only one allowed to be despicable. I'm no saint either. If you're willing, the bedroom is right there. If not..." His eyes lifted slowly. "Then take your contract and get out." I stood frozen, struggling to find my voice. "Leo, I can sleep with anyone in this world. Anyone but you. 6 years ago, I was blind. If I get involved with you again now, I should hang myself in front of my mother's bed to atone." Harrington's deal fell through and I was unemployed. He had many sources, and he was surprised to learn I had turned down Leo's 6-figure offer. Not one to lose a lucrative opportunity, he cut me off and gave Leo some advice. He told him there were easier ways to get a man. If the soft approach didn't work, try a harder one. He revealed that Ash had a mother who had been in a coma for 6 years, and that Ash himself was not well, probably suffering from depression and needing money for medication and therapy. A person in that state, he said, has no energy. With no college degree, his only option for making real money was manual labor, but he was too sick for that. Harrington advised Leo to just wait a few days. Now that his source of income was cut off, he'd come begging. Leo was in a daze. His voice trembled when he finally asked who Harrington was talking about. Ash, of course. Wasn't he the one Leo was interested in? Every word was about Ash, but Leo couldn't connect the information, the coma, the depression, no degree, with the person he knew. After hanging up, He rushed back to the high school reunion he had been at and grabbed the first person he saw, asking if they knew anything about Ash's family situation. A woman nearby answered first, saying she didn't know specifics, but she heard things had been tough for him. After what happened with his mother, he'd apparently cut ties with all his relatives and had been managing everything alone for years. Leo asked when this had happened with his mother. The woman hesitated, then said it was the day of the SATs. Another classmate chimed in, remembering that he'd heard Ash dropped out of college, maybe in his second or third year. No one knew what he did after that. The consensus was that he couldn't be doing well, otherwise he would have come to the reunion. The room filled with chatter about Ash and Eleanor Walker. It seemed everyone knew something, even classmates who hadn't spoken 2 words to him in high school. The patron he only saw for sex knew. Only Leo, the one who set it all in motion, knew nothing. He felt like he couldn't breathe. The voices around him blurred into a high-pitched ringing in his ears. At 9:30 that night, Leo drove without GPS, navigating by memory to the old apartment complex. It was unnervingly quiet. The night watchman, an old man with a limp, grumbled as he opened the gate for Leo's car, complaining about someone dying on his shift and how creepy it was in the dark. Someone in the complex had died. Leo looked up at the 3rd-floor window. The heavy navy curtains were drawn tight, but unlike last time, a faint light seeped through the edges. He pressed a hand to his chest, his heart pounding erratically. He knew it couldn't be Ash, but a sickening fear gripped him. What if it was? I sat alone on the floor. The doorbell had been ringing for a long time before the sound penetrated my fog. I didn't answer it. I didn't know who it could be at this hour, and I didn't care. The next morning, I opened the door to find Leo slumped against the frame. He looked haggard, his eyes red-rimmed as if he hadn't slept. He told me he was sorry, that he didn't know. I didn't know which specific thing he was apologizing for, nor did I have the energy to ask. Forgiveness at this point seemed like a pointless formality. I said nothing, just pulled my coat tighter and walked past him down the stairs. My mother was gone. I had to find Mr. Harrington. I needed money to bury her, and he was the only person I could ask. I knew I wasn't worth much to him. Even when he was my patron, he only paid $3,000 a month. Leo was right, I was cheap, but that wasn't nearly enough for a funeral. This city was expensive and burial plots were even more so. I didn't want to take my mother back to the small town she had fought so hard to escape. She had no roots to return to and no real roots here either. We once had a house, but I'd sold it early on to cover the overwhelming expenses. It was an old, small place in a bad neighborhood and didn't sell for much, especially after paying off the mortgage. The money was gone in a flash. The buyer was a kind man who rented the place back to me, saving us the trouble of moving. My mother had worked so hard her whole life, only to end up with nowhere to call her own. Still, I wanted to bury her here, in a place that was at least familiar. So I knelt before Mr. Harrington and begged him for a loan. I promised to work like an animal to pay him back. He glanced at Leo, who was standing behind me with a grim expression, and a smirk played on his lips. He refused without a hint of negotiation. Ash, I'm not a charity. The answer is no. You can kneel there until your legs break. But I can give you a suggestion. The man standing behind you is much richer than I am. Why don't you try kneeling for him? Leo wouldn't need me to kneel. He stepped forward and pulled me to my feet. Ash, don't do this. How much do you need? I'll give it to you. I pushed his hands away. Leo, if I use your money, my mother will never rest in peace. She'd probably haunt me, calling me an ungrateful son. Tears streamed down my face as I walked away. She would be so disappointed. She would think it was because she didn't raise me right. That's what she always did. I tried to see Harrington many more times, but he refused. The person I was a stand-in for had returned and found a new boyfriend. Harrington was busy playing the villain in someone else's love story and had no time for me. During this period, Leo tried to give me money through various means, but his attempts were clumsy. and I saw through them every time. He practically lived outside my apartment building. One night he was drunk, crying and repeating that he was sorry, though for which transgression I couldn't be sure. It was only through his litany of apologies that I realized how much he truly owed me, things I had long forgotten. 6 years is a long time. Time had pushed me forward, and my memory had begun to fail. I used to hate him, a sharp, piercing hatred, but that, too, was diluted by time. I stopped thinking about him. There was no love, no hate. I began to forget him and everything he brought with him. So when I saw him again after 6 years, I felt nothing. Or rather, very few things could cause a ripple in my sickened heart anymore. The biggest wave had been when he told me Julian wasn't his first love. You were. It made me feel sick. If everything he did before had a grand, tragic reason, now he was just rotten to the core. My mother was right. Nothing good ever comes from this. Not for Julian and not for me. On the third day of my search for a job, Mrs. Diaz's son, Mateo, returned. He was standing outside my building, looking weary despite his expensive suit. I froze. Mateo? He asked, his voice gentle. Ash, are you okay? Mrs. Diaz got out of the car then and rushed over, pulling me into a hug, her voice thick with unshed tears. Ash, we're too late. We came back too late. I looked at them, and my own tears finally broke free. 4 years ago, Mateo's job had taken him and his mother abroad. They called often to check on me and my mom, and I always told them we were fine. I didn't want them to worry from across the ocean. I told them I was doing well. But Mrs. Diaz would look at me through the video call screen, her eyes full of pity. Ash, she would say, your eyes are so empty. You need to be happy. But I couldn't. I could force a smile, but I couldn't force the feeling. Patted her back. Mrs. Diaz, it's cold out. Let's go inside. She remembered herself then and told Mateo to get the ribs she'd just bought from the market, saying she was going to cook for me. I managed to smile. Okay. Leo had followed us. He stopped at the doorway, a forlorn figure. For the first time in days, I spoke to him. Go home. Don't come back. He gave a sad smile. I need to watch over you. I'm not at ease. It's fine. You don't have to. Just pretend you don't see me, like before. My face was expressionless. Leo, in the 2000 days you were gone, nothing happened to me. He was speechless. After a long moment, another apology escaped his lips. I had heard a lifetime of apologies in the last few days. I was sick of them. Then I forgive you. Now don't come back. Neither Mrs. Diaz nor Mateo asked about the man left outside the door. They just looked at the urn temporarily placed in the living room and sighed quietly. In the kitchen, Mrs. Diaz wiped her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking, calling me a foolish boy for suffering so much without telling her. Mateo picked up an empty prescription bottle from the table, turning it over in his hands. He asked me carefully, Ash, is there anything I can do to help? I had no other choice. As much as I didn't want to be a burden, all I could say was thank you. I couldn't let my mother stay in this rented apartment. Mateo suggested I go abroad with them. Get treatment first, then finish my degree. I hesitated. I was finally free. I didn't want to start again. Mrs. Diaz, her eyes red, scolded me. Silly boy, Mateo earns all this money, and you won't help him spend it? He keeps buying these useless, flashy cars. Besides, he's getting married in 2 months. You haven't met the girl. She's lovely and has been dying to meet you. You listen to me. You come with us and be his best man. They wanted me to be Mateo's best man. They were the kindest people in the world to me, besides my mother. I didn't want to miss such an important moment. My own affairs could wait a little longer. I agreed. Getting a passport took time. Mateo had to return to work, but Mrs. Diaz stayed with me. One afternoon, I woke from a nap to hear her talking to Leo outside the door. Young man, it's cold out here. Ash is asleep. Why don't you come in and warm up? Leo declined, saying it would upset me if he came in. Mrs. Diaz sighed. I remember you. The Christmas Eve of Ash's senior year, you set off fireworks for him. You two were close, weren't you? What happened? After a long silence, Leo admitted that he had wronged both me and my mother. Recalling the car accident, Mrs. Diaz's tone sharpened. If that's the case, then where were you all these years when Ash was going through hell? Leo didn't answer. She left the door open, waiting. Finally, he spoke. I didn't know about any of it. He explained that to get revenge for Julian. He, a 17-year-old with limited resources, had asked his family for help. His father agreed on the condition that he go abroad to study and cut off all contact with home. He had agreed, never imagining he would be gone for 6 years. So he truly didn't know. Mrs. Diaz gave a cold snort and softly closed the door. Well, then you can go on not knowing. She turned and saw me, looking as guilty as a child caught stealing candy. She gave me a sheepish smile. I smiled back. Let him go on not knowing. The day we were leaving, Leo stopped me. Get better. I'll come find you when I've settled things here. I looked at him, feeling lighter than I had in years. I managed a real smile. Leo, I really did love you once. A heart-wrenching, all-consuming love. And then I really did hate you, a hate that was just as deep. But that's all in the past. Don't come looking for me. I finally started to forget. Seeing you again will only bring back the pain. If you have even a shred of guilt left, then please don't make me feel that pain again. He slowly let go of my arm. But there's one thing I have to tell you. I was never in love with Julian. He helped me once and I considered him a friend. That's why I was so upset when he died. What I did back then, it was for that reason and nothing more. The person I love, I didn't listen to the rest. I turned and got in the car. I am 24 years old now. Mrs. Diaz is right. It's still a very good age. She told me a story from when she was a little girl, learning to write. Her teacher had assigned them to write a full page of the new characters they had learned that day. She wrote meticulously, terrified of making a mistake. But kids make mistakes. Every time she wrote one character wrong, she would tear up the entire sheet and start over. She went through more than 10 pages that night. And then what? I asked, sipping the stew she had made. She smiled, the lines around her eyes crinkling. And then my mother chased me around the house with a broom for wasting paper. She told me you can't throw away the whole page just because of one wrong word. You'll get a spanking for that. She looked at me. I knew the story was for me. I nodded. Mrs. Diaz, can I have another bowl of stew? When I was 18, I wrote a word wrong. For the next 6 years, I tried to tear up the page. But it was just one word. Perhaps it didn't have to define the rest of my life. The beef stew was delicious. It was warm and comforting in my stomach, and it reminded me of a line I once read in a book. As the noodles and broth slid into his stomach, in that moment he wanted to sigh, to weep. This is good. I'm glad I didn't die yesterday.